The accidental discovery of alcohol. Did beer invent civilization? The rotten fruit trap. Imagine you are a nomadic hunter-gatherer living 12,000 years ago during the dawn of the Holocene. It has been a long, scorching week of tracking wild game and foraging across rough grasslands. Food is scarce. Water from stagnant pools is risky, and every calorie counts. As you forage near a rocky outcrop, you stumble upon a natural hollow in the stone or a primitive woven container left behind from weeks earlier. Inside is a collection of overripe, smashed wild berries and sweet fruits. They have sat in the sun for days. The fruit is bubbling, frothing with a strange white foam, and giving off a pungent sweet and sour aroma. By all modern logic, you should throw it away. It is rotting, but you are hungry, thirsty, and curious. You take a cautious sip of the sweet, fizzy liquid pooled at the bottom. It burns slightly going down, but it tastes surprisingly rich. A few minutes pass. Suddenly, your fatigue begins to fade. Your aching muscles relax. The constant stress of survival softens into a warm, euphoric buzz, and you feel an overwhelming sense of social ease and joy. You have just experienced humanity's very first contact with ethanol. For centuries, standard history taught that ancient humans settled down, built permanent villages, and invented agriculture purely to bake bread and secure a reliable food supply. However, a revolutionary theory in modern archaeology, known as the beer before bread hypothesis, suggests something far more wild. Human civilization didn't settle down to feed itself. We built the modern world because our Stone Age ancestors wanted an endless supply of alcohol. The Drunken Monkey Hypothesis. To understand why prehistoric humans fell in love with alcohol, we have to look much deeper into our evolutionary tree, about 10 million years in the past. Biologist Robert Dudley proposed the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis, which explains that human attraction to alcohol isn't a modern cultural quirk. It's a deep biological survival adaptation. Our early primate ancestors lived high in the forest canopies, relying heavily on ripe fruit for energy. But fresh ripe fruit is seasonal and quickly drops to the forest floor. When fruit falls and its skin breaks, microscopic airborne colonies of single-celled fungi, wild yeasts, invade the sugary pulp. Through anaerobic fermentation, these yeasts consume simple sugars, glucose and fructose, and produce two metabolic byproducts, carbon dioxide gas and ethanol. For ancient primates, the faint scent of ethanol carried on the wind was an unmistakable beacon. It signaled high-calorie, sugar-dense food located here. Around 10 million years ago, a crucial genetic mutation occurred in our shared ancestor with chimpanzees and gorillas, a mutation in the ADH4 enzyme, alcohol dehydrogenase 4. This single genetic upgrade allowed our ancestors to metabolize ethanol 40 times faster than earlier primates. Suddenly, ground-dwelling apes could eat fermenting, fallen fruit without suffering fatal alcohol poisoning or becoming so incapacitated that leopards caught them. Alcohol wasn't just a mood-altering substance. It was an evolutionary survival advantage that unlocked vast stores of otherwise inedible calories. The Natufian party at Göbekli Tepe. Fast forward to approximately 13,000 BCE in the Fertile Crescent. A semi-nomadic group of hunter-gatherers known as the Natufians were roaming the valleys of the Levant. They lived right on the boundary between wandering bands and settled villagers. In 2018, archaeologists excavating Rakafet Cave in modern-day Israel made a groundbreaking discovery inside 13,000-year-old stone mortars carved directly into the bedrock. Chemical residues of microscopic starch granules showing unmistakable signs of malting, mashing, and fermentation. The Natufians were brewing crude, 13,000-year-old wild wheat and barley beer, thousands of years before the formal invention of farming. Then came the revelations at Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. Built roughly 11,500 years ago, Göbekli Tepe is widely considered the world's oldest known monumental stone temple complex. Massive 16-ton T-shaped limestone pillars carved with predatory animals stand in giant ceremonial circles. Curiously, there are no permanent domestic houses, no domestic kitchens, and no signs of settled family life at the site. What archaeologists did find were 6 massive limestone vats and troughs, some capable of holding up to 40 gallons. 160 liters of liquid. Chemical testing of the porous stone revealed traces of calcium oxalate, often called beer stone, a distinct chemical byproduct formed during the brewing of cereal grains. Why does this matter? Because carving, dragging, and erecting massive multi-ton monoliths required hundreds of nomadic foragers from dozens of rival clans to gather in one place for weeks at a time. Without government, money, or written laws, how did early humans convince hundreds of dangerous, competitive hunter-gatherers to cooperate peacefully without killing each other? The answer was a massive communal party. The leaders provided giant limestone vats filled with thick, intoxicating fermented porridge. Beer was the ultimate social lubricant that forged alliances, encouraged intertribal marriages, and transformed wary strangers into cooperative workforces. The accidental chemistry of the mash. How did a Stone Age stickman actually brew beer without a laboratory, thermometers, or sterile tanks? It all happened through simple, ingenious empirical observation across 3 accidental stages. 1. The malting accident. Nomadic gatherers stored wild barley, wheat, and oat grains in leather pouches or damp cave corners. If seasonal rains seeped in, the grain became wet and began to sprout, germinate. To save their precious harvest from rotting, early humans dried the sprouted seeds over campfires. Unbeknownst to them, sprouting creates natural enzymes, amylase, that break down complex raw grain starches into simple, sweet malt sugars. 2. The hot stone mash raw. Whole grain is difficult for human stomachs to digest. Hunter-gatherers crushed the malted grain with stone pestles and mixed it with water inside animal skin bags, wooden hollows, or crude clay pots. Because leather and wood burn over open fire, they heated river rocks in the campfire until glowing red hot and dropped them directly into the water. This raised the liquid to the exact temperature, around 145 degrees Celsius to 155 degrees Celsius and 63 degrees Celsius and 68 degrees Celsius, needed to convert grain starches into a sweet, rich liquid called wort. 3. The magic of wild yeast. Once the warm, sweet mash cooled down, wild yeasts drifting in the air or lingering on the surface of local fruit skins, like wild grapes or figs, landed in the pot. Within 24 to 48 hours, the mixture bubbled furiously. When the foam settled, the result wasn't clear. Carbonated modern lager. It was a thick, highly nutritious, low-alcohol fermented porridge packed with B vitamins, digestible proteins, and active probiotics. Liquid medicine in a dirty world. As human populations grew and settled into the very first permanent villages, a catastrophic public health crisis emerged. Water contamination. Nomadic hunter-gatherers rarely drank contaminated water because they moved constantly. But the moment hundreds of people and domestic animals lived permanently beside a single stream, waste accumulated rapidly. Drinking local water meant risking fatal waterborne pathogens like dysentery and cholera. Here lay the hidden superpower of ancient brewing, the boiling step. Making a hot stone mash required heating water, killing lethal waterborne parasites and harmful bacteria. The fermentation barrier. As yeast converted sugars into alcohol and lactic acid, it lowered the liquid's pH. Most deadly human pathogens cannot survive in an acidic, alcoholic environment. Throughout the ancient Near East, Mesopotamia, and Egypt, beer and wine weren't recreational vices. They were the primary source of clean, daily hydration. Workers building the Great Pyramids of Giza were paid in daily rations of kemet, thick, nutritious, low-alcohol bread beer. To ancient humans, beer was literally liquid life. Clean water, vital nutrition, and pain relief, all packed into a single clay bowl. The brew. That built the world today, we walk into modern grocery stores where alcohol is treated as a recreational luxury sold in neat glass bottles. Yet, looking back across the timeline of human survival, alcohol was far more than an intoxicant. It drove the evolution of our primate digestive enzymes 10 million years ago. It motivated nomadic hunter-gatherers to construct humanity's first monumental stone temples. It provided the critical incentive to clear fields, plant crops, domesticate wild grains, and invent pottery. And it kept our ancestors hydrated and alive when clean water was practically non-existent. Humanity didn't just invent beer. In a very real biochemical way, beer invented humanity.